All right. So for today's stretch break, we are going to be focusing mainly on the hips and in the legs. And so we're going to start out just by loosening up a little bit, and then we'll go into some bigger stretches. And so let's just go ahead and start out with a basic forward fold. So anytime we do a forward fold, all we're doing is just allowing our trunk to slide down, reaching down to the floor, and then you can just allow your body weight to hang. Let the weight of your arms fall forward. You don't have to touch your toes. You don't have to touch the floor. You'll get a nice stretch in those hamstrings if you pull those knees back, straighten out your legs. If you start to feel any tension in your back at all, any unwanted tension, then you can just bring yourself back up, loosen up a bit, and then just go down as far as you comfortably can. All right, nice job. Let's go ahead and move on. So next up, you might need to hold on to your chair or your desk or a wall, something that you can help yourself keep your balance for, because we're going to be doing some side-to-side leg swings. So we're just loosening up the hips, loosening up that hip joint, introducing a little bit of movement. If you've been sitting for a while today, we can all definitely benefit from a little bit of dynamic movement here and there throughout the day. So I'm starting out with my left leg. I'm keeping it straight, and I'm letting momentum do a lot of the work. You can slow this down if you want to get a bit of activation in the hips and the glutes. But for the most part, we're really just loosening up that hip joint. All right, let's do the same thing on the other side. So now I'm using my right leg. And again, if this is something where you can hold yourself up, this is a great chance to kind of practice your balance a little bit, especially with that leg swinging side to side. You're shifting your weight pretty rapidly, so it's a great way to practice keeping that balance. But if you are unable to complete the movement without holding on to something, then just go ahead and grab onto a chair, something next to you, so that you can continue to do this throughout the entire time we are. All right. Okay, next up, let's go ahead. We're going to move down into the legs. It's going to get a little bit of the hip flexors, but mostly the quads. We're going to be doing a standing quad stretch, but there's an option to be seated if you need to. So to start off with the standing quad stretch, you're just going to reach back, grab the ankle, and I'm starting out stretching out my left leg. And then from there, you're just going to hold. You can either hold your balance or you can hold on to a chair next to you. Whenever I do this, I like to take that knee, make sure it's pulled all the way in towards my midline. That way, I get a good big stretch in the quads. And whenever I pull that leg back, you actually get a nice pull in your hip flexors if those are tight. So go ahead and keep holding that if you can do that. If you need a little assistance to complete that movement, you can be seated in your chair, scoot out to the side of it. And then what you're going to do is reach down, grab that ankle, and then sit up straight. It's going to pull that leg up to the side. You don't have to have quite as much flexibility to do this, but you can still get a good stretch in your quad. All right. So now for those of you that have been holding that standing up, let's go ahead and switch to our opposite leg. So I'm going to switch to my right leg, standing up straight, making sure I'm taking that knee and tucking it in towards my midline. And then we're just going to hold this for a few seconds. Again, press those hips forward, keep them in a neutral position, and pull that leg back if you want to go deeper and into the hip flexors a little bit. Same thing if you are seated, you can go ahead and move onto that right leg. And so again, just scoot out to the opposite end of the chair as you were on before. Lean down, grab that ankle, and then sit up straight. Now, again, on this, you're going to be a little bit more prone to having that leg jut out to the side. That's completely fine. But if you can scoot out to the edge of your chair enough to where you can tuck that leg in a little bit, that'll help you get in that hip flexor a bit. All right. Let's go ahead and move on, and everybody's going to be in a seated position for this. So we're just going to be sitting upright in our chairs, and then we're going to do some knee tucks. So I'm going to start out with my left leg, grabbing right underneath my knee on the front of my shin, and then I'm actively using my arms to tuck my knee in as close to my chest as I possibly can. And how far you get up, it's just going to depend on flexibility, mobility. And so some of you may be able to actively touch your chest with your knee, and that's great. But even if you can only get halfway up before you run out of that range of motion, and that's fine too. You just want to go as far as you can. Try to keep that leg relaxed while you're actively pulling it up with your arms. All right, let's go ahead and do the exact same thing on the other side. So now I'm switching to my right leg, sitting up straight, grabbing right underneath my knee on the front of my shin, and then pulling that in as close to my chest as I can. Relax that leg. Do all of the work with those arms. Very nice job. All right. You can go ahead and release. We're going to stay seated in our chairs. And now we're going to do something very similar to a figure four stretch. And so we're going to do this in a seated position, though. I love to do this just at my desk throughout the day. Very simple because it is a seated movement. So what we're going to do, I'm going to take my left leg, cross it over my right, and then I like to get a pretty tight tuck in there. And then from there, you're going to try to keep your back fairly straight. And then we're going to hinge the hips and lean forward. And so how far you lean forward, again, it's just going to depend on how tight you are, what your flexibility and mobility is. But you want to go until you feel a tight pull in your glutes, in the back of your thigh, depending on where you're tightest. And then we're just going to hold there. And this is a pretty big static stretch. So, if you want to do this on your own throughout the day, then you can, hold this on each side for a good 30 to 60 seconds each side. All right, let's hold for just a few more seconds. And then we're going to do the same thing on the other side. So now I'm taking my right leg, crossing it over my left, tucking it in nice and tight. And then we are leaning forward. And just a tip, if you do this and this kind of hurts your knees, it's an awkward position, leaning forward in that crisscross position. Then one thing that I found that helps a lot is instead of having just a 90-degree angle in that bend in your leg, then you can put a little bit more of a bend in it, tucking it in a little bit tighter. And whenever you take away that 90-degree angle, it a lot of times will take a lot of the pressure off of that knee. All right, very nice job. We've got time for one more stretch, and we're going to go with a pretty basic hamstring stretch, but those get really tight both when we're active and when we're seated for a long time. So super important to stretch out those hamstrings. I'm going to stay seated. I'm straightening out my legs in front of me, and then I'm leaning forward. And again, since most of these, or a lot of the things that we've done today have been in a seated position, this is a great routine to go through just at your desk, especially if you've been sitting looking at a computer for a long time. It's great to get up or to stay at your desk and just get a little bit of movement, a little bit of stretching. All right. Very nice job. You can release that. And that is all the time we have today. So thanks so much for joining me, guys. Feel free to go through that routine as many times as you would like throughout the day. But if you have any questions over any of the stretches that we went through, feel free to ask or to put them in the chat after class. But besides that, I'll see you all next time.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Stefan.
Stefan.
Thanks. Bye, everyone.